This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode contains brief spoilers from ACOWAR with mentions of the Priory of the Orange Tree, the Black Witch Chronicles, and the Vampire Diaries. For full list, please see show notes. Additionally, there are discussions surrounding child abuse, trauma, violence, massacre, and colorism.
Everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the YA literature and fandoms that we love. I am Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are discussing The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri,
which is a multi-fantasy sapphic novel that I learned something about myself during this reading. For anybody who's been listening or has been following along to some of our previous episodes, Laura is my sensei, and she's the expert in all things when we're going into like a lot of this fantasy genre. And with, like, for example, when we covered Priory a while back, she's like, you need to pace yourself. You need to do this. Guess what Jessica didn't do? I didn't pace myself. So, and it was my first epic fantasy, and I had come off of Throne of Glass. I didn't realize that they are sub-fantasy genres within the fantasy realm. And this read is just like that. And to the point where right before the episode we started recording, we looked it up to see, like, okay, well, how is this classified? Because Laura read this through audio book. I started it as audiobook and then switched over into ebook, and then I kind of merged the two. And it's because that this genre is considered like, if you look it up on Google, it's fantasy / high fantasy / fantasy fiction, also historical fantasy. So I just think I'm not a smart person.
You are a smart person.
Just process it in the audio capacity. There's just a lot going on, and I want to make sure it's right and I'm following everything correctly. So having that, you know, the audio, of course, helps with the pronunciations for this book and series, because it's a confirmed trilogy, and having the words in front of me, I'm like, okay, I'm processing, I'm not zoning it out, because it's the same thing that we had with We Hunt the Flame and We Free the Stars, that the narrator is just so soothing. Like, even when you increase the speed, you're just, you know, it could lull you.
That's interesting that you bring that up. I did not find this narrator in the same kind of vein as the other one in the lulling so much. I found myself wishing there were a little bit more personality injected into the reading. I thought that might be a little bit more helpful because there wasn't like a male voice or a female voice. It was all just one, and that's fine. Like, that's a narration choice. That's fine. That's fine. But that is a criticism. I did the Reddit. I did the research. I was on Reddit. That's a criticism that people have, is that the narrator is kind of one-dimensional. And with, the other books, there's a little bit more oomph in the narration there. And that is something that has been said. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
No, I am too, because and confession right now, I didn't tell you this. I was 7 chapters in to listening to the audiobook, where I go, what just happened? Because I didn't remember anything. And that's why I was like, well, it's the lulling factor. It has to be, because I can't. So there's a person, Priya, and there's Malini. Couldn't remember anything in between. So I had to start all over. And that's when I went back and got the ebook and did the audio. Because if I was 7 chapters in and it was well into over an hour into the book, I was like, how the hell am I going to follow this? So
that is another interesting point, because it does take books like this, and this is, please correct me, about 500 pages?
Yeah.
Yeah? This is a thick, like, she's thick. So for books like this, it does take a significant amount of time before you start to kind of piece together the plot. I was unaware of the plot really going on for a good chunk of this book. But that is another criticism that people have, is that the first like 40% or so of this book is like world building. But I fucking love the world building here. But before we get into the world building, we must know who the characters are. Jess, who are these characters?
There's so many characters, but some of the key characters
we whittled it down.
Because the author in the back of the book, she has lit 2 pages, a list of all the characters and how the characters are broken down. We highlighted the key ones that you'll be hearing a lot in this episode. You have Priya, Malini, Seema, Meena, Rook, Bhumika, Emperor Chandra, Ashok, Aditya, Rao, Vikram, Pramila, Kritika, and then there's like 3 chapter titles with character names that kind of move the story along, but as this is a confirmed trilogy, I guess we'll find out later.
Yep, good. See, those are our like mains, right? Those are our mains. I am going to say right off the bat that Bhumika is a fucking queen. She's amazing. I love Bhumika. I love everything that she does. All praise to Bhumika. She's amazing. I also really, really like Malini.
I like Malini. Maybe I'm jumping ahead here. She says at the end of the book, I'm going to find my emperor brother. I am going to make Chandra kneel before his peers, humiliated and broken, and I'm going to watch him burn. Like, yeah. We knew she was all about that. And
She's about that life.
I fucking here for it.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. But I think this is a good jumping off point. Let's jump back to the marketing of this book. The marketing of this book was enemies to lovers. Jess, do you think that's true?
No, they were never enemies. Maybe they're like where their respective locales, had you referred to it like their city states are perhaps like warring because of their difference of opinions and how they run things and politics more, but I don't see them as enemies. I don't think they really worked together once they kind of had their own focus, had their own goal. And then, as we discuss later in the episode, something brings them together and they realize that there's a mutually beneficial relationship that can come out of it, but there's nothing enemies about it.
Yeah, I didn't really think that they were enemies at all. I think they were all enemies of the Emperor. So, and we're not loving on the Emperor, so there's nothing there. So, yeah, I did not feel that this is really enemies to lovers. That's what it was marketed as, but I think that's really interesting. Diving into the world building, I want to start off by saying that I will be damned if we read another book with like body horror. I don't know what it is. But like, we had our violent delights, these violent ends, with the bugs, and then we've got this one with the very descriptive, the vibe of this to me is very much Laurie Forest dryads mixed with the vibe of Annihilation, the movie, kind of put together. That is how I feel about this. Really wild with it's like a beautiful kind of horror, the way that they describe like buds coming up through fingertips and like flowers for eyes and like vines for hair and things like pushing up through the skin, like blue, like it is described several times as like something blooming inside your chest and like pushing its way out, like very beautiful but horrific descriptions of things. And it was just yeah, so
it reminded you of that one artist, right?
Well, yes, it did. That's a really good transition, Jess. It reminded me very much of Fruit by Giuseppe. I'm going to butcher his last name, so I'm not going to say it, but Google Fruit and Giuseppe and painting, and he'll show up. He does a bunch of classical paintings with people that have fruit for faces. And some of them are very pretty. Some of them are very like, whoa, but they're all very interesting. So that was also kind of the vibe that I was getting here too, especially when the yaksa are described as having like flowers for eyes. That was just like, oh my goodness. Well, this is here. Really love that. So, we are cultured here at ACOFAE. Throwing out fine art.
Laura is. Jessica is not.
Throwing out fine art. This is my last reference. that I will make, and then we'll dive into the plot. The plot being that Princess Malini is being, for reasons, slowly poisoned to death by needle flower by her maid. This plot very much reminded me of Curse of the Golden Flower, which is a beautiful, absolutely stunning movie about the Forbidden City and the Emperor, and he is slowly poisoning his wife so that she will go insane and he can like commit her, and it's just this very cruel thing that's happening because for reasons, but it's the same kind of thing. She's aware of it, but she has to take it because he has like so much power over her, and she's trying to manipulate her way out of it, but she's also losing her mind. So it's very much mirrored here with this plot, and it just made me really want to rewatch the movie because it's fantastic. Would recommend.
Clearly, because I have, to no one's surprise, I've never watched this.
Beautiful movie, would recommend. It is subtitled, so you have to read stuff, but the visuals are stunning, and you will be surprised at the cast. The cast is stellar.
So as Laura was saying, Malini is being poisoned by Pramila, who is her handmaid. Let's back up. So in the prologue, we have a little bit of Malini's background of her brother. She has two brothers right now. They're both older than her. She has her brother, Emperor Chandra, and then there's also her brother, Aditya, who has kind of left the whole royal, life to be a priest more or less and go cultivate his own path. So her emperor brother Chandra is an awful person. He's a piece of shit. He's abused her when she was a child. That's its own other thing, because I got really frustrated at that part that Aditya was like, oh, have you ever been hurt? Like completely forgetting about all these instances. But again, everybody's trauma is different in how they're processing it. And obviously, like, her trauma isn't his trauma, but I digress. So anyway, Malini, she's supposed to be burned on a pyre, and that's going to be her sacrifice. And she goes, no. She's like, no, I don't want this. I don't want to do it. I don't hear these voices that are calling to me. I don't believe in this quote unquote like sacrifice, sanctity, whatever you want to call it.
Well, burned at the pyre because she got caught trying to incite a revolution.
Oh, well, the bigger picture, the
bigger picture. That's why he's doing it, is because she got caught, and she and you bring up such a good point. Her two best friends went willingly to the pyre. Her two best friends went, and Malini said no. And because she was royal, they could not force her onto the pyre. And that is just like a little detail that was like, damn.
So from there is kind of like repercussions to her actions. So her brother says, like, you're going to get imprisoned. We're going to basically keep you in solitude for a while, forever, in the Harana, which is a temple in Aharanya. And that is where something that is called I want to say Deathly Hollows, but that's not it. The Deathless Waters exist. And the Deathless and it's more of it's a temple on the side of the mountain. And that's kind of where our story starts, where you're going to have the overlapping of Priya and Malini. Her brother sends her off to the Harana, which is a temple. This is also where the Deathless Waters are located. And that's kind of where our story starts, because Priya is here at this temple. And what we've come to learn about Priya is she is a child of the temple. She is a priestess. But being a child of the temple means that you get powers. How do you get these powers? From the Deathless Waters. And you basically have to drown and become reborn. And if you survive that drowning, however many times it is, you get certain powers, and you're considered like a once born, a twice born, and thrice born is the maximum that we are aware of at this time.
And you start at age 10. Your first like going under is at age 10, typically, which I thought was good, because I would like to know what the other ages are. I did not come across that when I was reading what the second age was.
No, but like one of the things that is discussed is like like with the powers, the more you kind of go through it, the more powerful you become. And as this is being made aware to people in the community, they realize that they have to, like, that's part of the reason that there's like a massacre of a lot of the children of the temple, where now we're at the point where we only have three left, which is Ashok, who is Priya's brother, Priya, and Bhumika. And Bhumika is married to Vikram, who is not an emperor, but he's kind of like a regent.
He's a regent.
To Emperor Chandra. And that's why Malini is at this specific location, because this is where Vikram, reigns over, more or less.
Yes. And Chandra follows the Sisters of Flame, right? The Mothers of Flame, that religion. And that religion requires burning for purity. There's also another religion, like the Nameless, that Aditya follows with the monks in the mountains. And then there are the Yaksa, and that religion, which is the temple in Arianya, I will get it, that Priya and Malini are at. And I think it is just a cruel twist that Chandra is demanding that Malini not only live but never leave the room where the priests burned the children.
Yeah, and they walk in.
It's not cleaned. The soot is still on the walls.
And he just says, this is nice. This'll do. He's so fucked in the head. There's no other way to say it, because they even talk about different flashbacks later on that Vikram had, where he was explaining about these massacres, and they would say that Chandra would just his eyes would light up with excitement, knowing this sadist person that he is. I mean, I don't want to say that in a negative, I don't mean it in a way where it would shame people who are into BDSM. I mean it in a psychopathic kind of way, where this is just not okay.
Yeah, it is not okay. He's absolutely off his rocker. And that is confirmed for us in the epilogue here, where you're just whoa, buddy, no. But we will get there. I told you I was on Reddit. One of the criticisms that I saw here was that the relationship between Priya and Malini could have been a friendship. It did not have to be, which is always but it is. So shut up.
Why would that even be a criticism? Now I'm annoyed.
I know.
We literally were just give me more. What was when I even told you? I go, I want something sapphic. And that was how we got to this point where we're let's look for something that checks all the boxes that we're looking for. We want politics. We want engagement. We want sapphic. We want something that is going to be thought provoking, and that's what this was. This was incredibly thought provoking, and it provoked. Oh my god, it could be a friendship. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, why? Who cares? Shut up. Good god. I like this slow kind of burn situation that we have here with Priya and Malini together in the Harana. I like their because Malini is drugged. She is on drugs, not of her choice. She is being fed drugs. Everybody knows it. Everybody's aware of it. Everybody knows the end goal of this, right? It's a whole fucking thing. But even through those kind of druggy hazes, she's still kind of yo, Priya's real pretty. I like that skin. She has pretty eyes. But she's also, and this is why I like Malini so much, how can I fucking use her? I hate myself. I'm going to have to use her. I have to use everything in my power. She says that over and over again. Everything and anything to get myself out of here. End goal.
I like her survive, and I was thinking about that the other day, because I was also just thinking about Malini, and then I was also thinking of Catherine from the Vampire Diaries, where everybody paints her as this devil, this evil, she's so bad, blah, blah, blah. And everybody always comments, Catherine always looks out for number one. Catherine always looks out for herself. When has looking out for yourself become such a negative thing? Like, genuinely, like, I know we're supposed to be, like, compassionate and complacent, and I feel like there's a way that you can do it, but when you're in a situation like this, you have nothing but respect to say, look, I have to look out for myself. I have to, and if there's somebody else involved, like, then it's going to be me and that person, just like Amber did with Diana and Gabby with her story. She's like, look, I'm number one. Like, that shouldn't be faulted. And to go into the conversation for this book, it's that's frowned upon, because she's a female who thinks.
Yeah. And I also want to point out here, it is in the book that homosexuality was not considered taboo. It was not a thing. It was not criminalized or looked down upon until this empire, Parajatpita, came and demonized their culture. The Yaksa culture and the Ahirani culture. And, like, fuck, man, if that just doesn't ring true.
Right. And that was one of the things that that Malini even says. She's like, wait. That used to be an okay thing, because she had never heard of it any other way. And you hear Priya talk about, she was like, I wish I could marry a woman. Now I just have to get stuck. Maybe I have to be stuck with some man that I have to marry, and God forbid I have to have a kid.
Oh, well, that's a perfect transition to Bhumika, because I love Bhumika. I did not start off loving Bhumika. Did you start off loving Bhumika?
I've tried to be better about jumping to conclusions about female characters, because God knows I hated Lysandra, and now she's like one of my queen bitches. But I didn't hate her. I was kind of like wondering where it was going to go. I didn't hate anybody in this. I was just like cautiously observing to see how everything unfolded.
I love Bhumika for, like, she was in the temple. What is she going to do? She got out, right? She ran away. She got out. Her family fixed her up with Vikram, who is going to be the regent. Like, that's a power move.
Yeah. Like, they didn't want her to be in the temple, so that's why she survived. Mm-hmm. I like that she kind of, and she's so smart about everything. Like, she does everything in her best interest, but in the interest of, like, the people and of her childhood, which is how she was able to bring Priya under her wing. But at the same time, she's like, this is as much as I can do for you. Take it or leave it, And then she gives her off, or when spoiler, Seema, one of Priya's friends, finds out that she has, like, magical powers, and she has to kill somebody, Meena. The first thing Bhumika does, you're supposed to go with the whole thing. You're supposed to act powerless. Like, what were you thinking? You weren't, because I can tell you, she, like, called her out on her shit, even though Priya wasn't admitting to, like, yeah, I fucked up,
That whole scene, though, that you're talking about is so good. So I have to say, the image of Priya and all of the maids, right, in the dark with the lanterns, like, walking up to the Hirana would be beautiful on screen. And then like, Seema falls, right, and she saves her, and that's, like, our first inclination of, like, her being connected to Hirana. And then she gets up there, and it's Meena, and she's, like, up there, she's on the plinth that she shouldn't, and then, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But this confrontation scene between them, where she pulls out the mask, right, and she
crown
puts
mask or something,
yeah,
it's supposed
and
to
the
give, like,
crown
ultimate
mask,
yeah,
and she puts it on, and it's just like, it, like, melts her, like, oh my God, it is like just this horrible thing that just would be lovely on screen, I feel like. But that imagery, and then like, Malini's, like, back here, like, watching, right, and then Malini is even in her state, she's, like, looking and, like, addressing the situation, and she, like, sees what she can do, and then she, like, breaks down, right, and starts, like, hypervent, like, and, like, throwing up and everything, and that gets Vikram up there, and that gets Pernilla up there, and that gets, like, I need a maid, I need to feel safe, and that's how Priya gets, like, close to her, so she, like, manipulates the whole situation. It is just very Jude vibes.
Yeah, well, I loved that, because she, at that point, Priya doesn't know that she saw her, that Malini saw Priya use her powers. So the fact that she was, like, 2 steps ahead, I'm like, I have to act like she was saving me, because now I know what this bitch can do. I don't want that on me. I'm trying to get out of here. I'm still trying to, like, again, survivor mode. And I have nothing but respect for that. Like, she's just, like, again, bigger picture. you have to survive. How am I going to use this in my benefit? And knowing that because she's royal, that, I mean, it was telling, not in a bad way. Like, that was just, predictable. Again, not bad. That you knew that was going to be the situation. Like, oh, I need to feel safe. Can she be my person?
Mm-hmm.
Because she's already saved me once. Like, I have trust in this person. And what are they going to do? Say no? And Vikram even says that. He's like, well, you can't have friends. You can't have all these things. Your brother said you can't do X, Y, and Z. But I guess, like, one person, like, she already saved you. I understand. Like, he saw it from she positioned it as a logical thing for him. She's just so smart.
And she also looked like shit, right? Vikram, his like inner monologue or his dialogue is just like, damn, she's really thin. Like, she's got like circles under her eyes. Like, she's only been here a month. Like, what the fuck is going on? I did not, like, he says he should have involved himself more with her care, because if she dies like prematurely, then that's on him. So he's like, oh, I really should give her this maid. Like, fuck. It's really good. We haven't talked about Prem or Rao or any of that plot line.
There's like plot lines within plot lines for this.
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. So, and then there's like also Ashok and what Ashok is doing. But let's just say like Ashok is with the rebels doing rebel things.
And Ashok is Priya's brother.
Priya's brother, who she doesn't know he's alive until like later.
That's the whole thing. I forgot about that because he's been so involved, because now that we're talking about it, he isn't involved. They set it up that he died, and that's why that Priya was like given up for adoption, and then she was taken to the Harana. Mm-hmm. I forgot about that.
And Bhumika knows that he's alive because they meet in the... But
then later you find out that she wasn't the only one who knew. It was almost like the running joke was on Priya. She's like, you fucking knew too? So now you tell me shit. Like when she was questioning people in the forest.
Yeah, that whole thing was wild. But Priya does eventually find out that her brother is alive and kind of fuck him. But he's doing like rebel stuff with Kritika and like Rook, because Rook's a double agent, and like all of that.
Saketa.
Yeah, Saketa. All of that stuff. So that is what Ashok is doing. Rao and Prem are Aditya's besties, and they are staying in a brothel with someone else, and they are feeling out political things. Right? Yes?
Yes. I keep forgetting about all this. Like, I start focusing on one plot line. This is why I'm totally doing a reread. Prem is the prince with the rot.
Yes.
And he's
he
like
the rot.
drugging and drinking, and he's like, but was it really, I guess it was for like that political knowledge that they were just trying to get in. Because I thought part of it was just that our Hiranya is just kind of like a less intrusive state.
Yeah. Like, no, yeah, because it's conquered, right? Like, it's a conquered state, and it's like, never going to get back to its former glory because the Yaksa are all dead, and they're only known for their pleasure houses and the brothels.
Right.
So they're like trying to figure out more about Malini and to like get the political like vibe of what's going on with like Lord Sakosh and like all that stuff. So that's happening. Bhumika's happening, and then okay, I think we're pretty good in that situation. I just really love the imagery of Priya like changing the Harana, and the Harana like moving around her, and like she's sleeping, and like vines grow, and like things like that happen. I really like that.
And that she doesn't realize that it's happening, and the only reason we know it is because we have Malini's point of view. Right.
And Priya has a connection to the Harana. She's once born, and then through events, right? Like through events, she's twice born. She's twice born before they leave.
She's twice born before they leave, correct? Because up until that point, she was, she would refer, when her and Bhumika would have their one-on-ones, she was like, okay, twice born, like, like a mocking sisterly way. And Bhumika's like, don't pull that shit. Don't call me that. Like, that's not how this works. So that's how we knew it was once born. And then she goes into the water, the Yaksen speak to her, and then she comes out, and that's when, then they go, because then when they're going, she talks about like having always heard that they might be like side effects to the second, for the second born. And she wasn't feeling them until a couple days later. And that's like, she'd have like blood coming out of her eyes or like down her nose. And Malini is like, what is going on? And she would like kind of black out and stuff.
Right. And then they ended up at the elders to like treat her, and that whole freaking situation. I want to talk about the women here, because the women obviously do shine, but and I know I'm jumping, but I think we have to jump to keep this within a reasonable time, because there's just so much going on. And also I cannot wait to reread this, but Aditya's hesitation to take up the fucking throne and overthrow his piece of shit brother when everyone is fucking ready and waiting for him, and like just he's ready, it drove me up the fucking wall. And Rao was just, I like when Rao was like finally just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what is it? And that's when Aditya takes him and shows him the vision and like whatever and stuff. But like I was screaming at him. Absolutely screaming at Aditya. And eventually when Malini and Aditya reunite, and she's like, where the fuck is the army? Where are the elephants? I did all of this work. Where is
everybody? Yeah.
And he's just like, I am not ready. I could have killed him.
I was mad. And then I was mad at myself, because I'm thinking, why do I want? Because I think we've had this conversation in past episodes where sometimes I'm like, I want a hero. And then I'm like, no, you could save yourself. A woman can save yourself and be her own hero. So when I got mad at him, I was like, no, you know what? I need Malini to save them. And that was like when I stopped to think, because again, it's like a billion years to uncondition myself for this, like, a girl needs saving, I still actively want to be like, no, a woman should save herself. A woman can save herself. And that was like, and I'm learning that even like through like what we read in our discussions and the podcast and everything. So that was when I was like, wait, her brother isn't going to do it. It's going to be her. And that was when I was like, oh my God, can we just get over it? Like, but I understood that that's part of the turmoil. It's part of the challenge. Like, she has to, and later to know that it's part of the prophecy.
Oh, the prophecy.
It's like so good. And the thing with the prophecies in this book are, going with like the whole religion of the nameless. You had mentioned how part of this book reminds you of the Cruel Prince or the Folk of the Air in like different capacities, and knowing someone's true name was another reflection of that, because someone's true name, that means you took kind of ownership and awareness of a prophecy to come. And that was Aditya's name was this prophecy that Malini is supposed to overthrow Chandra.
And that's such a great scene too, because Malini's like, I did it. I shot the arrow. It was me. And then everyone's
so
like,
good.
oh my God, it was fantastic. And Malini shooting the arrow was so good. And Malini being like, this whole thing is lacquer. They like, all of this is gonna go. Like, they were this is a horrible situation. This is a horrible situation, Aditya. And then he couldn't fire the arrow. He's just like, hold. And then like she comes out, she gives that speech. She knocks the arrow. Oh, that was amazing. Absolutely amazing. God damn, that was good.
And it's just Aditya. So like, now I'm just going back to think like how much you wanted to shake him. He's like, my sister, I could have her wishing war. Yeah. On our piece of shit brother. Like, you might not have like been subjected to like his abuse, but I certainly have. And I see what he continues to do. Like, how does anybody like, but clearly they don't, because sometimes it's just like, it's like when you're the only person who sees somebody else doing something negative and you're just like looking around like, I can't be the only one who fucking sees this. Like, anybody, please. Like, how, not everybody can be this blind, but here we are.
And it's men. Here we are. Fucking men. I just love it. really like the complicated found family relationship between Priya and Bhumika, and also Ashok. What I don't buy is the found family with Priya and Rook. I like understand her like wanting to help, and I understand her like and like reaching out and taking him in, but I don't get the like. She treats him like a brother, like straight up like a brother, and like really goes out of her way, and he like betrays the shit out of them, It's
like it feels like a double betrayal.
Yeah. And the whole thing, and then she saves his life, technically like a lot, and I don't know. It was just like, okay. It was weird.
I think part of that's because it wasn't an initial, how sometimes with found family tropes, there's like, it grows, it's not, just how you have insta love, it's not like an insta family. And this was never like there were never really any familial things. She kind of was just like, hey, you need some food, you need some sacred wood, and he's like, I can do a job. And, and even when she goes back to Bhumika's like, he's dying. Just remember that there's only so much we can do for him. And then she he gets caught with a double cross once again. And because it wasn't just once, it was a couple times, because, that's its own thing. And Bhumika calls him out, and she's like, I need you to be like my errand boy. Like, it never felt like he was a family member. He just kind of felt like he was just like somebody who was working within the confines of the Harana. Never, it never, like, a relationship wasn't developed aside from, like, what he was able to provide and do.
Yeah, and then she goes out of her way. It's like this whole thing. The sisterly relationship with Bhumika and Priya is really great, and they say it over and over and over again. They're just like, you never, like, say that to my face. You never respect me. She's like, I always do. And they're just like sisters. It's funny. I really enjoyed that. It's like an older sister vibe.
And I like how it's kind of intertwined, that it's like, and I had questions as I was reading, and then it would be answered as I was reading. I was like, wait, are they, I don't want to say really sisters, because you know how I feel about, kind of projecting that stuff. But it was more or less like, were they biological sisters? But then it was more of that, sisterhood, like the sisterhood, sisters in the temple. But then they really do become quote unquote biological sisters, and I say this like with air quotes, because of the things that they've gone through. But I don't think it's just like a shared trauma thing, because Priya makes the comment of, it's so dicey because, like, of course I want to refer to her as my sister, but then I'm also like, every time I think of siblings, I think of the trauma of losing my additional siblings in this child massacre of burning.
Yeah, which is really horrific. Let's talk about that, though. The child burning situation is the temple children, when they were first born, developed their abilities, faster and like more, right? And then Ashok is twice born?
He's twice, he becomes twice born in this book. He wasn't twice born prior. Like him and Priya become twice born at different times, but it wasn't like how Bhumika was already twice born prior to this book.
Okay, yeah. So the temple children all develop their abilities, and the temple priests quickly realize that like Priya has a special connection, and like Ashok and like all these things, and that the temple children are getting too powerful and like more powerful. And that's where the kind of conversation about what is monstrous, that because like they have that conversation, different characters have the conversation about what is monstrous kind of throughout the book. And that definition kind of changes as the characters go, which I thought was really beautiful. Kind of ending on that like monstrous like is what you make it, more or less, which is pretty good. But it was really interesting and lovely to kind of think about that whole situation. But the Emperor
Chandra,
but it wasn't Chandra at the time, right? It was the father.
Okay. The father.
Yeah, the father like got the news, right? That these temple children were becoming really powerful, and had the priest like burn them, but the priests, here's my thing, the priests wanted to, because when Priya and Malini are at the place and they find the temple elders and they're nursing Priya through her second born situation.
Twice
born situation. Chandra says, I should have killed you. Like, we should have killed you. Like, you're an abomination. You're a monster. We should have killed you. And it's just like, whoa, damn. Like, still, like, what do you, and it is, because it does, like, they are very powerful, but it's like, what do you see? Like, what was it? Like, why do we scare you so much? And that whole situation, and then, of course, Ashok, like, murders them. But the monstrous conversation that is kind of sprinkled throughout this book was really well done, I thought.
No, I like it. I mean, I liked everything. Like, I know we're talking, you know, it's kind of sprinkled throughout, you know, the criticisms that have been heard and said, and Laura is a goddess and, like, did all the research, because I did not know of any of this negative, because that's the first thing I said. I go, negative for what? Because I really enjoyed this book.
Oh, the book's wonderful. The book is absolutely wonderful. So let's converge. There's just so much going on.
I know.
There's lots of, we're broad strokes here. There's lots of battles. The rebels come and, like, destroy lots of things. One of the criticisms, you brought that up, is that there's a high body count in this book. There are a lot of people are unalived in this book. That is just something that is happening. It's like a pre-war situation, like battles. I don't know. I was expecting it. This book does get compared a lot to the Poppy War. I have gone on record.
That's the one that you only read once, right?
I only read the first one, and I only read it once, and I won't read anymore. I go for escapism. The Poppy War is very heavy. This is also very heavy, but it is something that I am familiar with, and it is something that I really enjoy. So this is just different for me. The monastery, the speech with Malini, the lighting of the lacquer, the whole thing, Bhumika giving birth, right? Like, that whole thing, Priya leaving and going to cut a deal. Right? Like, Priya.
And doesn't tell anybody, of course. She's
like, I'll be back. Like, bitch, where are you going?
She left Bhumika in the middle of her legs spread to push out that fucking child. And then, okay, I'm not speaking from firsthand experience. I haven't given birth. I'll never give birth. But then I'm hearing her like, oh, she just has somebody patting her back. I'm about to push a fucking human being outside of my vagina, and you want to give me a back pat?
Yeah.
Get the fuck off me. That's not going to subside any vein. I could tell you that right now.
For real. Like, you do that to me, I'll stab you in the neck. Like, that's just not happening.
And then, because Bhumika's a bad bitch, what is she doing? Like, 2 days after she gives birth to Padma, she's ready for war. And everybody's like, this is dangerous, Bhumika. Like, what are you going to do? And she's like, I got shit to do. Get her a wet nurse. And if, like, I'm not her mom, she's not going to have a mom, because I'm not passing my daughter on to just anybody. I just kind of loved, like you said, like, you weren't sure, like, you know, I was reading for things to unfold. You were just like, I want to see how this plays out. She's the VIP. She's the MVP of the story.
She
it's only book one.
It's only book one, and she is in power. She is the high lady in charge. She is taking over. I love her. She's like, no, let's go into the waters. Like, we all going. Let's go. And, like, she does not hesitate. It is just fantastic. And then, of course, she's thrice born.
But, like, in that scene, where that was where my criticism was, is that Priya goes off because, you know, everybody's coming in and out of the birthing tent or whatever. So this one person comes in, isn't a handmaiden, and is just, like, delivering a message to Priya. And that's where, like, why does everybody insist on going to these places by themselves? It's just a general, and then not telling anybody
to cut, like, deals that include all of us.
I just, you know, and it's not just this book. Like, I've read ACOWAR. We've all read ACOWAR. Mm-hmm. We know that shit happens with Thera. So, like, it's not like I'm picking and choosing. Like, we all, I just, It's just like when I also think if you unalive somebody in anything fantasy realm, unless that head is off the body, they're coming back.
Yep.
Like that's how this is just like one of those inevitables,
Facts. Oh, so true. I mentioned one of the criticisms. One of the criticisms was that this was a slow burn. Of course, this is sapphic with Priya and Malini. They do have a really lovely river scene. Like, fantastic. We love. I do have to be picky, though, and say that their tent scene at the end, where they're both, like, passionately kissing, but they know it's a goodbye, but they know maybe they'll come back, like, that whole scene where Priya goes to her is my second favorite scene in the whole book. Like, I loved that. It gave me Priory vibes. It gave me bitches that know their shit. They know what they have to do. Like, you all, what does Malini say? Like, you will always be welcome, like, wherever I am, like, come to me, like, all of that stuff. And she's gonna, like, lead the war. Like, she's gonna be empress. Like, she's gonna, like, they're all gonna be bad bitches. Like,
yeah,
it's great. And like, Bhumika's running shit down there, and like Priya's doing her like vibes. What is Priya doing?
Well, that was one of the things. It's the last couple pages in the book where Priya and Bhumika are having their conversation. They've already gone into the rivers. They're already thrice-born. And it's really unheard of to hear of anybody being thrice-born because of how powerful they are. And now they're like, wow, we're like literally the only two priestesses of the temple who have survived this, because Ashok, Priya's brother, goes to be thrice-born and he does not survive. And it's actually more rare to survive the constant reborning, I guess, like,
sure,
for lack of a better word. So now you only have two children, and they're both thrice born, and here we are. And Bhumika goes, "Do you love her?" Referring to talking to Priya, referring to Malini, and Priya completely evades the question, and she says, "I choose our Hiranya first. I have to. It lives inside me." And Bhumika is like acknowledging this, like, yes, I totally agree with you, but she could also be like your sweetheart. She could also be your girlfriend. You could also make her an ally, like bigger picture. We love that. But rest assured, if things kind of go sideways, you have to kill her. Like no dancing around it. And I really appreciate that relationship, because there's constantly communication, and that's something that we both appreciate in friendships, to be like, look, see you, hear you, recognize you, all the good vibes, but also don't forget, like, bigger picture, like what's the actual end goal.
Women, right? Like, just so good. A goal, achieve, will do. Just so fucking good. Rao with that prophecy is just like the way that the chapters are in the audio. It goes like Rao is just like, here's my name, and then it cuts to somebody else's POV, and I was just like, fuck. Like, I threw what it was in my hand. I was like, what is it? What is it?
But it wasn't like a one-time thing. It was like every time he's like, okay, now I'm ready. And it was just like,
he's like, should I tell Aditya? No.
But that's also one of the things in this book, is that it's never like, how you could have, when you look up in a name book, or if you Google the name, like, what does the name Laura mean? Or what does the name Jessica mean? And you look it up and it's like child of God or whatever it is. Like, we never find out what the actual name is. We just know that the name has been told, and then you find out, and name means insert entire prophecy here.
Yeah. So good. That whole thing was so freaking good. And then, of course, the book ends with Chandra clearing out his mother's garden to burn women, because he's just
fucking deranged. He's the worst.
He's the absolute worst. And he's like picturing his sister, and he's breathing in the ash, and he just like, he loves it.
He's
right?
excited. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, he's not like that's one of the final lines, is he's like imagining Malini, and like with a glow on his face or something that he was like giving him exuberance.
Yeah, like, but you know what? Malini's gonna come humiliate him and light him on fire. piss on his ashes.
And that's the best part, that this is a confirmed trilogy. So like I'm not even expecting it in the second. I'm ready for her to rain shit down. And I'm even like, this is just complete speculation. Like both her and Priya like ride up on him. Yes.
Yeah.
Like combine those forces, get those elephants, get everybody. Because that's another thing that Bhumika was also, you know, one of the many battle scenes. There's after Vikram dies, and Bhumika is like, I have been
she locks him in that room.
Yeah. She's been like cultivating based on just like who she is as a person. It you know, in Beauty and the Beast, the animated one, where all like everybody in the house, like all the furniture comes to rally for Beast.
Yeah. It's like all the weird ones, like
everybody, every single person is working together. Like that's what that one scene reminded me of all of everybody who was in the Harana who loved and appreciated a Bhumika, because they like at the end of the day it was almost like they were pledging their fealty to her. Mm-hmm. He just happened to be there. That's what I loved. It was just like inspiring that passion for the people, and she had been doing that since she was promised to Vikram.
And they held
the community.
And yeah. And they held it. They held her like house pretty much for her while she was gone. Like the servants did. Like that was awesome for her. Like I love that.
Well, like and they like, and that was one of the things when Malini would like go to Rao. She's like, no, like we have allies. Like everybody's here to. That's all go like, and this is again like I understand the world building. I understand it's slow. It's high fantasy. I get all that. But I just, if that's already, how sometimes you have that expression, we might not win the battle, but we'll win the war. Like these little battles, like, this is just leading up to the war. And we're already seeing that in book 1. I could only like fingers crossed hope that has that trajectory later on into the trilogy.
It is so very exciting. Jess, what is your favorite part of this book?
I was thinking about, I think I need a reread before I think of a favorite part. I really, really enjoy Bhumika saying, I got shit to do. Go give my kid to a wet nurse. It just brings me such joy. I can't explain it. I also like the moment where, I can't say if it's my favorite moment, but I enjoy the moment where Priya is starting to realize her feelings for Malini. And she's actively like, I shouldn't like this girl. All those internal thoughts that you have in your head. I shouldn't like her. And then like she bites her lip or something and her blood tastes different. And it was like, I guess because of her magical powers, she can be more in tune to like empathy with the blood. And she just goes, oh no. Like, I just thought it was so funny. She's like, oh fuck. This is not just blood. Like I'm attracted to her. Fuck. It gave me such like I think I like it, but it was those little light, because it's a heavy book. It's a heavy book, and I think it's a lot of very real things and discussions and frustrations that people have, and in certain parts of society. I mean, just like a perfect example is like what you used to like. Men used to be able to marry men, and like there's like this like that frustration of like not being able to have that freedom anymore. Having some levity through like these very real situations was needed, and it was woven so intricately. It was a great story.
You're talking about Bhumika. My favorite part of the book is when Bhumika locks her husband to die in the room. She plays it up and she's just like, yeah.
But that's the woman is the neck and the man is the head, and the woman can make the head do whatever way he wants. And he didn't fucking listen.
Yeah. She tried to warn him. He didn't listen. And then he gets hurt and he's like, Bhumika, a doctor, a physician, please give me that. She's just like, fuck you. Go die, and just like locks the door and just like, she's a bad bitch. Bhumika, the bad bitch. So that was my favorite part. My second part, of course, is Malini lighting the speech and like shooting the arrow. That was my favorite. Like, that was just really good. But I can't get over Bhumika just being like, and he's like, that's my child. She's like, yeah, but like mine right now. And this child will be its own person like later on without me. And like, that's cool too. But right now you have like very little to do with this. And I was just like, bad.
I love, she's so good.
Bad bitch. Bad. Oh my gosh.
Can you, one of the things that I thought while I was reading this, because it's just, the descriptions are so pretty. I'll do a two-part question. One, could you see this on the screen? Like, could you and would you see this on like a TV or film adaptation? And two, if you could, what would be your preferred method in a trilogy movie, or would you want a miniseries?
I would want a miniseries because we know that it is just going to be a trilogy and just a lot of books and a lot of material. So I really want to give it good due. So I would say a miniseries. I really personally, maybe people don't know this about me, I love Bollywood. Bollywood is one of my favorite things. I am very active in the Bollywood like media world. I watch a lot of movies. I know the actors. I don't think that I would like to see this necessarily translated into a Bollywood film. However, they do historical epics in a way that we cannot imagine. They are so good. So that, that could be really something beautiful there. Something could be done there. But then with the conversations with Bridgerton, that should be celebrated. So like more of that, right? Mainstream.
And making it mainstream.
Yeah, absolutely mainstream. So more of that. Maybe include people from, like all the, bring people from Bollywood, make it a thing, like do it, include, all that stuff. That could be really great too. Especially because colorism is a trigger warning here. And Priya and Malini remark to each other and internally that they have very different eyes and skin color. It is not.
And hair texture.
And it's not like a negative thing between them, but like in the Empire, it's a thing. It's a fucking thing. So that's important. But there are some kind of lame criticisms of this book. Being that they didn't have to be lovers. They could just be friends. Shut up, as we said. And
I have enough of those.
Yeah. And that it was slow, that the pacing was slow, that it was like boring, that it was a prequel. People did DNF. And people thought it was just like gave them the ick, which I just don't agree with at all. So, everyone can have their opinion. Maybe not that one.
I was going to say, I was like, I do respect a lot of people's opinions. However, to the reasons and the criticisms, I feel like that's a you problem.
Yeah.
That's a them problem.
Yeah, that's a you problem. If you want to say that the body horror kind of turned you off and like the images of like plants coming out of skin is weird for you, valid and fair, but like let's not be lame and weird about it. Like, gosh. Fantastic book. Jess, I told you this earlier, have not read the two other like sapphic yellow covered books that came out about the same time, which I believe is The Iron Widow and She Who Became the Sun. I'm not 1,000% on that.
I have seen the conversations.
Yeah.
I've seen conversations of We Who Became the Sun, She Who Became the Sun.
I am not sure because I'm a bad person and did not look it up to be specific before I said it on the podcast.
I didn't know it was sapphic.
I do believe because it is included. They are all included. Those 3 yellow covers are the ones that everybody says. So again, correct me if I'm wrong, please. That doesn't bother me. Would recommend. Absolutely. 100%. But with the trigger warning of body horror and the knowledge that it is a thick fantasy epic and that enemies to lovers might not be the perfect.
I wouldn't say, not enemies to lovers, but that people say the same thing about The Cruel Prince.
Yes.
That it like maybe they're enemies to lovers by like.
But The Cruel Prince is
Queen
also
of Nothing,
politics.
But it's politics first, lovers second.
Yeah.
And that's this book too.
Mm-hmm. Politics first, lover second, and the politics and the religion are pretty rad here. The world building is pretty epic. Yeah, really excited.
And you have like insight from like 3 different ways that we had like ebook, we have audio. So you have like, be that what you will with that information of how you think, if you choose to add this to your TBR, how you want to approach it, what's the best way to approach it. And also, I think a fun thing about this episode is that it doesn't feel spoilery. Like, we just kind of discuss the characters because there's still so much to unfold that I don't think we might have covered everything to perfection. But like, who does? You know, like I can't spend an hour, although we could with this book, on like 3 chapters every hour because there's so much to dissect. So if you choose to read it, you'll get so much out of it.
I'm so excited to reread this already. Like, I'm going to start like as soon as we're done. Just continuing where I left off. Very, very exciting.
So feel free to follow us. We're on Instagram, ACOFAE Podcast. We're also both on TikTok, ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. As always, please feel free to leave a 5-star review on whatever listening platform that you follow us on. And we look forward to talking to y'all soon. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.